this border war. Fans called it Moonshine Throwdown. I think that's the best rivalry name, an unofficial name, but the best rivalry name I've come across.
Yeah, unofficial that should become official soon enough.
Embrace it.
5 receivers at Duncan's disposal. Duncan stepping up. Hit! Ball is loose!
Big call here.
Marshall thinks they have it, and the Horde do!
Here's the kickoff from Amaretto Curry to the Hilltoppers, and we are underway, and a fake reverse on the kick return. And here comes Townsend down the left sideline. What a way to start it for Western Kentucky on the road, and it is an opening touchdown return, and just like that, the Hilltoppers strike first.
Justin Rohrwasser to try to win it for Marshall from 53 yards out. It's got the leg. It is good! And the perfect season continues for Justin Rohrwasser.
Goes for 2. Going for the win. Western Kentucky going for the victory. Rolling to his right, quick strike, and they did it! Western Kentucky has ended the perfect season into the hands of Willie McNeil. A shocker here in West Virginia, and it is over for Marshall. They end the regular season 11-1.
Welcome back to the Moonshine Throwdown podcast. Position group breakdown series continues again this evening. Mofstradamus is with me, and we're talking Hilltopper offensive line and running backs. So far, Trace and Steven are like aligned with one another when they tell me what they want to cover. Both of them have chosen the same 4 position groups, well, 3 position groups in the coaching staffs right out of the gate. So that's not by I don't know what you call it. It's just coincidence. But anyway, now we're going to start with the Western Kentucky offensive line, a position that Steven and I are kind of in agreement with, that this was the biggest, I don't want to say question mark, but it was the biggest area of concern maybe. I mean, it's not like we feel bad about where the Toppers are. It's just like looking at what it has departed off of the line starters from a year ago. It's a little bit concerning. It can be if things don't go right. I mean, you're talking about 3 highly, highly productive linemen that played a lot of ball together that are gone. 2 due to like exhaustion of eligibility, or not really with the COVID rules, just didn't want to play anymore. Meredith, of course, testing the NFL waters. Seth Jost was just kind of like, all right, I've had enough ball. I don't want to come back and retain another year of ball. We wish him the best of luck. Always loved watching him play. Shout out to David Jost as well. We love you guys and miss you guys. Wish you'll be around at the tailgates. Hope we still see you. And actually, we hope we can get Seth to join the fun now since he's not a player anymore. But the other one that is gone along the way is, all-timer in my opinion, Tyler Witt. Grad transferred up to Purdue, going back to reunite with Jeff Brom for his final year of eligibility. And by all accounts, is doing well. It likes the transition. Really loved his time on the Hill. Nothing against Western Kentucky. Just had an opportunity to play on a larger stage and with a familiar coaching staff, and seized that opportunity. So you gotta love that. We wish Tyler all the best, an all-timer in my opinion, like I said, and hopefully, we'll miss those guys. Kent and the rest of the Whit family will miss them at tailgates and stuff as well. So hopefully, when Tyler's playing days are done, whenever that may be, that we can get them back and start having a little fun on the Hill as well. Look, Phil still ranks this unit a highly, highly, highly disrespectful, tied for 12th in Conference USA with Florida International. Highly disrespectful, in my opinion. Total number of offensive linemen on the WKU Sports roster is 16. Portal, we talked about the lot. Really, the only one that hit the portal was Tyler Witt, and that's a grad transfer. Brought 2 guys in, Cameron Stage from Bowling Green out of the MAC, and Bo Wilson played a lot of ball for the Nebraska Cornhuskers. So saw some gaps, filled some gaps, as the Toppers have done with the portal. That's going to be a running theme through all of these position groups that we talk about, because the Toppers just have dominated the portal and have continued to dominate the portal even up through this week. they got another guy, and good thing we haven't covered safeties yet. So they just got a guy from Georgia Tech. So we'll cover that when that position rolls around. But Steve, offensive line, we've talked about it off air, obviously through text messages for a number of weeks and months. We weren't sure what we were going to get. We still don't know how it's all going to shake out. But losing guys like Meredith, Jost, and Witt, that makes you take a step back and hope everything goes right. What are your thoughts on offensive line to this point?
Well, I mean, we lost a lot of meat there on the interior of the line, with those three guys. And just a lot of familiarity with each other, a lot of snaps, guys that just played a lot of ball together and knew what to expect from the other person. Now, you definitely like that our bookends, the left tackle, right tackle, are probably presumed starters, guys that are back, guys that have also played a lot of ball. And then we're going to be plugging the gaps, one with a familiar face, we think, and then those couple transfers that you discussed that have joined the roster. But, like you said, question mark, it is my biggest concerning area as far as not knowing what to expect. I have full faith and trust in the staff and the position coach and those guys, being just ball players, that they're going to get it and put it together and make it work. But when you're installing such an offense that the flow and the tempo is going to be predicated on what that line is doing blocking wise, holding, whether for runs or for screens or for a long pass play, there's just so many moving parts there that if, they're not all in use and all clicking, all working together, one piece not doing their job and it all falls apart. So, that is a big question mark when you're replacing 60% of that production. So, it's my biggest question mark, it's my biggest concern. I still think, there's a lot of good players on that 16 people that you mentioned. There's some players that have played some ball, even though we were senior heavy, upperclassmen heavy the last couple of years. We still were playing that too deep. We were playing other guys that got to get in and see some snaps. So, the 12th place, I get it. That ranking, I get it. But I expect, this offense to come together and those guys, especially with the experience they're bringing and adding to, I think we're going to be okay. I think we're going to be above average. Obviously that ranking is well below. I think we're going to be above average and going to have a very good unit that's going to be productive in the run game and pass game. And I think that's where it's going to start. And those guys are going to, live up to what they need to do when the lights come on.
Well, we talked about this when Trace and I were talking about the Herd offensive line. Most offenses are, like you say, their success rate is predicated on how well the line plays, period. If you can't block, if you can't open running lanes, you can't do anything. And you do get the luxury of returning two known entities, two guys that have played ball quite a bit along the Hilltopper offensive line. And you're plugging in some transfers potentially. We think those are going to be guys that are going to be starters. Cameron Stage, particularly because he's a center. He was a center at Bowling Green State, and we just expect him to come in and be the starting center, taking over for Seth Jost. And Bo Wilson has started 23 games for Nebraska. So there's been a lot. He's played a lot of ball. And the fifth guy that I think are in agreement will be the fifth member of that starting five is sophomore Rusty Stats. Guys played a lot of ball already anyway. 11 games in 2019, 7 in 2020. So like you say, just because you were senior heavy doesn't mean that the cupboard was just completely bare, because it is exceedingly rare for 5 offensive linemen to play every snap all year long. They just put up with too much abuse. They have to get a rest. They have to come out from time to time. They do get injured, they get dinged up. And so luckily there are some guys on down the depth chart here that have played some games. Some of them have played quite a few amount of games. And even though they're young, there is some experience at this level, and there is some experience even under this coaching staff. So to tie it all together, The 5 projected starters, at least in my mind: redshirt sophomore Cameron Stage, aforementioned from Bowling Green, 6'3", 300-pounder, played 5 games at center for Bowling Green. So not a ton of experience, but experience nonetheless. Graduate transfer Bo Wilson, aforementioned from Nebraska, played at Nebraska, not from Nebraska. 6'3", 305. Mentioned he has 23 starts there. 22 of those, I believe, were at right guard, and I think one was maybe at left guard or something like that. Sophomore Rusty Stats is 6'4", 315-pounder. Played 11 games for the Tops in 2019 and 7 in 2020. Then a couple of juniors, the guys that we for sure think will be on that line unless something catastrophic happens. Junior Mason Brooks, 6'6", 305-pounder, 12 starts in 2020. All Conference USA honorable mention at the end of the season last year. And junior Cole Spencer, 6'4", 300-pounder, 12 starts in 2020 also. And also all conference honorable mention. And his preseason field still 3rd team. So across the line, average for those 5 guys is going to be 6'4", 305. Nothing to sneeze at. That's pretty good. Pretty good size. And I would like to think that with that size brings a little bit of mobility for the type of offense you may be seeing. Some tempo. You're going to have some, what's the word I'm looking for? High endurance. You got to be able to go at a fast pace for a long period of time, or maybe not if you're scoring in 2 minutes at a clip. But you like these 5. I like these 5. Steve, Mason Brooks, I'm going to key on him for a second. Liked how he's been playing. Anyway, the biggest guy along line, 6'6", 305. And let's just fast forward to comments from just the other day, day one media day, as fall camp or summer camp opened, and had the line. He had the line. He said, I want to put one on Marshall this year. Hasn't been able to do that since he's been on the hill. And he's talking about big games on the schedule. Yeah, he said, yeah, you got Indiana at home. You'd like to get that one. But one I really want to get is I want to put one on Marshall. And I love that. So instant KD favorite right there. Mason Brooks, you got a bigger fan than, just what the play on the field says. So if you're willing to speak it off the field, I'm willing to listen to it, and I'm damn sure going to bring it up on a podcast. Steve, what about these 5?
Well, I mean, I really like who we brought in. I love Mason Brooks. Kind of what you see from the social media accounts. He's really kind of that vocal, high energy, just rah, get you going, get you pumped up guy. So you really, really like that big guy. If I recall correctly, I think in the spring game he was taking snaps when I was taking videos. I think Brooks was taking a lot of snaps, so that kind of threw me off. But maybe Cameron wasn't on campus at that point. I don't know. I don't recall, but I remember seeing 77 taking snaps because it's hard to miss a 6'6" guy taking snaps. But even these guys, Rusty, I think a lot of these guys can play multiple positions, and this is a projection of what we think and what feel. His insight from talking to Helton. I know in talking to Seth last year that he really thought Rusty Stats was going to get opportunity at center, and that's still possible. He's still a young player. When you have an opportunity to bring in somebody with more experience, you do that, and then you're also grooming that guy for possibly in the future. So it's always good to have guys that are experienced, that have played, can do multiple things, because there's going to be injuries, stuff like that is going to happen. So I think there's a lot of versatility, good size, and still good experience, even though we're replacing a lot. Some of these guys played. Mason and Cole have been playing since they were younger freshmen. Redshirt freshmen were playing. So maybe they got thrust in the spotlight too soon. But now they are experienced, kind of the veteran, the leaders of that room. So I'm expecting good things. I know it's not our highest ranked position group. It's probably our lowest ranked position group of all of our position groups. But I think we're going to be fine. I'm very confident in what's going to be on the field later this month.
Yeah, you raise a good point about a lot of these guys being able to play multiple positions. And that's something that we will probably have to see, because something I didn't even think about until, you were speaking is you talk about a guy that, like Seth says, Rusty could have been getting snaps at center. Well, now there's another new quarterback in Bowling Green, and that exchange is so important anyway. So if you've got 2 potential new centers on camp because Seth is gone. Two potential guys that could be a center along the offensive line. Who's going to have the most natural feeling, smoothest, most reliable exchange with the quarterback? Obviously, that's the guy that's going to be your starting center. You can't just pencil in Cameron Stage because he's a transfer. You can't just pencil in Rusty because he thought that there could be snaps there. It's going to be whichever guy's the most reliable in that exchange. Has to be. The whole offense is predicated on tempo and offensive line play and what Kitley's able to do with Zappy and all this kind of stuff. So if you can't get a snap off, or you can't, every fifth one is awry, well, that's not going to bode well for what the offense is trying to do. So yes, this is a very, very much a fluid thing in my opinion at this point. We're still talking about a whole summer session that has to happen. Yeah, games are 4 weeks out, but a lot can happen in 21 days, 4 weeks ish. So let's talk about some other guys familiar names to Topper fans that will undoubtedly see more time in the rotation because they've already seen time in the rotation. You start with the redshirt sophomore Gunnar Britton, 6'6", 305-pounder. He played 12 games both in 2019 and 2020. You'd be fooling yourself if you didn't think that guy was going to see snaps in 2021. He's already 24 games under his belt. Yeah, he's going to see some time. Redshirt freshman Wes Dorsey, huge guy, 6'7", 305. He played 9 games in 2020. So there's some experience there. These are guys that can, if somebody gets dinged up, they can plug them right in, and you probably aren't going to miss a beat, until you start getting way, way, way too far down the depth chart. Then things might have to, the offense might have to change a little bit to make up for some of the drop in productivity on the offensive line. But another guy I want to mention that has played some time in 2020 was freshman Quantavious Leslie, 6'3", 310. Those 3 guys I just mentioned, that's a total of 24 games plus 17 more games. I mean, that's quite a bit amount of snaps for 3 guys. And then you got a real youth movement, Steve, a real youth movement. We're talking about freshmen and redshirt freshmen. Jack Randolph, Wesley Horton, Colt Jackson, Stone Roston, all freshmen. So one of these guys or all these guys could be absolute studs. We don't know. But what we do know is they're freshmen and haven't appeared in a game for the Toppers yet. So, but there is a fair amount of depth. You're talking about 3 quality guys. And actually, any one of those 3 guys that were the first ones I mentioned could kind of squeeze into that first 5. We don't really know. So, I like where you're at. The depth is good. Multiple positions is an excellent point. So with what we've been talking about here, who is it that you're most excited to see out of this unit?
Well, talking about that depth, I mean, some of those guys, like Jack Randolph, he if you recall, he was the guy that was committed to Louisville. Then the Bobby Petrino firing and the hiring of Satterfield happened. They pulled his scholarship offer. He's a local kid from Franklin, right up the road where I work.
Yeah.
It ended up at Western. So it's always good to have those hometown guys. Then you got Mark Good, you got Stone Ralston, you got Leslie that you mentioned, Bryson Canada. There is a lot of youth there, and there's a lot of inexperience. But, man, I'm really excited about some of those guys starting to get some reps and earn some playing time because undoubtedly, that second group is going to get some playing time. It's inevitable. But, I mean, I'm really it hard to pinpoint one guy to be most excited to see. I mean, especially when you got, a potentially a new center, somebody who literally touches the ball every play. Besides the quarterback, he's the only guy touching the ball every play. Cameron Stage, a lot of pressure in that position. Bo Wilson coming from Nebraska. You just expect a lot of things from somebody who's played at that level. But I'm excited to see Mason Brooks. I think he has to be the anchor, the voice, the energy, the person who, if things are going bad, a couple plays here and there, a long drive that's sputtering, a couple plays. He has to be that high energy guy that, hey guys, let's pull this together. We need points. We need to march down the field. We have to do this. I think, he's going to be huge, in huddles, in the locker room, just for that position group in general. And I've seen that on social media. You see that in interviews. he wants to beat Marshall. Why? Because he's never done it. We've lost 4 in a row. Is it a rivalry if you can't win a ball game every once in a while? Every recruiting cycle. So let's go get one, please. It's been a while. Mike White was quarterback when it happened last. So yeah, I mean, you gotta love somebody that will speak their mind and say, hey, we got some, Michigan State cool, Army cool, Indiana cool, but hey, I want to beat Marshall.
Yeah.
I would like to know what that feels like. So Mason, he's kind of a, like you said, he's your favorite. He's kind of a me favorite now too, because when you'll speak your mind and say, hey, I want to beat somebody, especially in conference, hey, I want to beat you. Don't think Marshall guys aren't going to hear that.
Of course. Of course.
They're going to hear that. So the rivalry grows, it spreads, and I'm very excited to see this group come together, man. Even the depth, the young guys on the roster, man. I think we're going to be fine. It's going to be okay.
Yeah, I love a guy that's willing to make the SID cringe a little bit with, like, man, I really wish you hadn't said that. That was not vanilla enough of a comment. We needed you to tone it down a little bit. So I love those guys that are like, dude, screw this. It sucks. I want to beat these guys. Yeah, they know that ultimately, you're going to have to beat a team like Marshall. You're going to have to beat the FAUs. If you're going to capture the East, you can't rely on those guys kind of falling by the wayside and you just kind of sliding in there. You're going to have to get through one or both of them. So I'm glad that, he's saying that, particularly maybe to amp up his team a little bit, to, throw a little gasoline out there, not afraid to put something on the bulletin board in Huntington. I love that because at the end of the day, there's going to be defenders trying to get to his quarterback through him, and it's going to be up to him to keep that from happening. So I'm absolutely excited to see Mason Brooks as well. But I'm really, really excited to see the continued development and high level of play of Cole Spencer. If you go on the WKU Sports website and go to the football roster and bring up his bio, it is like 2 inches long of accolades from like PFF and Athlon Sports and Phil Steele. I mean, it's amazing. It's a ton of stuff, and most of it has been from last year and preseason this year. So a lot of high praise for him. And I don't see everything on social media. I don't see every award or everything that everybody gets. And I was surprised to see all of these things. I mean, there's like 12 things here. So I'm excited to see if this continues, not just the preseason hype stuff, but if this preseason hype stuff turns into like legit performance through the season, because it did in 2020. He was better than an honorable mention offensive lineman in 2020, but there's just so much room on the all conference teams that, they can't include everybody, and it's unfortunate. So I'm really excited to see Brooks and Spencer particularly, but I am intrigued to see how and if these transfers are woven into the line, and then how they're able to all come together as a unit of 5. So I know this is even tougher of a question. And I would be okay if you kind of shied away from zeroing in, because I'm going to. Who's the biggest loss from the unit from last year?
Yeah, I mean, when you lose 3 guys, in Seth that, ultimately retired, hung him up for the betterment of his health and body. Jordan Meredith, who hung on, is with the Rams right now, and then Tyler Witt, who's with Purdue. Obviously those 3 guys combined, literally the interior of your line, not the bookends.
Yeah.
All 3 of those guys were just vital. I mean, and obviously huge roles. I'm going to go with the center, the guy that literally touches the ball every single play. That the center position is so important, and we saw times when there were bad exchanges, and those bad exchanges lead to bad plays, bad possessions, bad drives. So those things get critiqued, and when you're throwing a new guy in there, new quarterback in there, new system in there, there's just a lot of moving parts and unfamiliarity. And even if you get it right 99 times out of 100 in practice, when the lights come on, you don't know how somebody's going to perform. Even when you are expecting guys that are coming in transfer-wise, you hope and think that this guy's going to plug in and be a good fit, but you never know till lights come on. So I'm going to go with presumed starter Cameron Stage. Center, he touches the ball literally every play. Bailey Zappi at the recent media day, he said he expects to go 12-0. I love it. I want to hear it. One guy says, we need to beat Marshall. The other guy says we're going to beat everybody.
Yeah.
Hey, that's BDE if I ever heard it. I love that swag. So, but somebody's got to get him the ball first. So I think that's an important position. So I'm going to go with Seth Jost. He's that guy that going to be tough to replace, and not just on the field but off the field. Tailgate wise with the family and how they took us in. So we're going to miss the whole Jost squad, but definitely Seth on the field is my biggest replacement.
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, he was my pick for who I thought would be the MVP of the unit last year because of those very same reasons. And I got to pick like the unit within the unit. And you said it, the interior portion of the line. How you lose all three of those guys? I mean, it's different if, you lose two of the three or three guys and one of them's a bookend type thing. And it's just not three straight guys in a row. But man, to lose all three members of your interior offensive line that all played at a very high level. I mean, one of them is now playing Big Ten ball. One of them, like you said, hung him up because of, reasons and concerns. He wanted to just be healthy. He didn't want to put his body through another year of abuse and the college football rigor and all that kind of stuff. And then the other guy's hanging on right now with an NFL team. That's a lot to lose. So give me the unit within the unit, the entire interior offensive line. My Lord, if the Toppers are able to turn this thing around and get more production despite those three losses at offensive line, it's going to be nothing short of amazing. All that being said, got new guys here. We got some familiar faces. It's tough to break out when you're already a known entity. So who's your breakout guy from the offensive line unit?
I really want to pick one of those guys on the depth chart. I really think somebody's going to squeeze in there and steal some playing time. And I know I'm a little bit biased because I work in this area. I work in Franklin, and I think Jack Randolph was a big commit that we snagged when he came over from Louisville. And just local guys, we've always had a lot of luck and success with those guys. I think he's going to sneak in, get some playing time, and hopefully be successful. So I'm kind of going into left field a little bit. I'm taking a guy on the depth chart projected, and I would love to see Jack Randolph, even as a redshirt freshman. I think he's going to get some meaningful snaps and earn some playing time. I think he's got a lot to show and a lot to prove. I think he's going to be a big piece going forward, starting today, this season, and for years to come.
Well, that's a little bit out of left field. I didn't expect you to pick someone that hasn't taken a snap in a Hilltopper uniform yet. I like the confidence. Would you say two snaps?
He played 2 games. He played 2 games.
Okay. My bad. My fault, Jack. So it's not as far out of left field as I thought, but still, I mean, somebody that's played 2 games versus guys that have already played 2 full seasons worth of games, like Gunnar Britton, so to speak. But I'm going to go a little bit less of a surprising pick, I guess. Give me Rusty Stats. I think he's going to have a big year, supplant himself as a solid member of a 5-man offensive line somewhere. He's going to prove that he can play a multitude of positions, and wherever the hole needs filled for his services, he's going to be able to do that. Become a real utility man on the offensive line. So a guy that you don't want to bring off the field. So if somebody gets dinged up at another position, you may slide him over and then bring in somebody like Jack Randolph, like you're talking about, to truly fill the hole for who came out. Who's the MVP when it's all said and done? You come up for air and you sit back and look at the season. Who are you going to pinpoint as the MVP? Who you think it's going to be?
I mean, I think it's going to be the veteran leader. I think it's going to be Mason Brooks, the guy that we've already said is the vocal energy, kind of get in your face guy. I think Mason Brooks is probably definitely my guy. He just seems to have that swag, that kind of leadership that you want to have on your team, in your group, in your position. But he just seemed like somebody I would want to get behind and rally behind and be, hey, I want to do better for this guy because this is the example he's setting. So I'm going to go with Mason Brooks at right tackle.
Yeah, absolutely. My same pick for MVP, and the level of play usually speaks for itself. And then when you start talking about being vocal, being loud, being excitable, the type of guy that will pancake you into the ground and then walk away. He's not going to help you up. You know what I mean? That's the kind of stuff that I like to see. A little bit of a mean streak out of an offensive lineman, playing through the whistle, not to the whistle. I say that a lot, but that's the type of stuff that I like to see out of an offensive lineman. I want my guys to be a little bit nasty. I want them to be a little bit rougher than they have to be, because this is an attitude type position. And for what it's worth, a lot of guys are able to turn that off at the end of the game, and offensive linemen, by and large, in my experience, are some of the nicest dudes that I have ever been able to hang around or be around. But when the whistles blow, when the lights come on, when the helmet goes on, it's like a transformation. Like, it's game time and they're ready to put some pain on some dudes. So give me Mason Brooks as my MVP as well. Here's the thing. We do hot takes every time we do a position group. There's some built-in ones right here with these rankings and all this kind of stuff. And I mean, I don't know, but what's your hot take for the Western Kentucky offensive line?
I think when you're looking at the rankings, like we've said, coming in 12th at the end of the year, when you want to look at that ranking, say, how did that pan out? What qualities, what criteria do you go by? I think you have to go by production of the offense in general. I think this unit will be better than a 12th ranked unit. I think they will prove that by having a running back that is near the top of the league in rushing yards. I think either Jakari or Cofield or Carruthers, whoever gets that nod at RB1, I think there's a lot of options there. I think we're going to have a very solid, capable runner, even though this is going to be air raid and passing a lot. Even when we were doing that back in the Brom days, we had Ace Wells that was tearing it up with yards and touchdowns. I think he had almost 30 touchdowns one year. So you got to kind of have that guy you can hand the ball off to. Then I also think we have to keep Zappy clean. You want to limit his sacks and keep that jersey clean of his. I think you want to have, less. You want to have a sack, maybe 2 a game. So, keep it under 15 sacks a game, or 15 to 20 sacks total for the season. He doesn't strike me as a mobile guy who's going to be running around trying to extend plays like we've seen in the past. That kind of lends itself to taking more sacks. So if we can keep Zappy clean, under 15 total sacks for the year, and have 1,000-yard rusher, near the top of the league in rushing touchdowns, wouldn't surprise me. And I think that would be unexpected, giving, a 12th preseason ranking in this magazine.
Well, when we were talking about the herd, Trace and I said that my hot take for the Marshall offensive line was going to be allowing less than an average of 1.5 sacks per game, just because we didn't know how their line was going to shake out. And I don't think I can project that type of thing, because I don't really know what this offense is going to be. If it's something crazy and you're back there, passing it 50 or 60 times a game, man, it's just kind of hard to say, yeah, we'll keep the quarterback clean. Nobody will get to him more than, twice a game. That's just tough. I mean, 50, 60 pass attempts or whatever the number is, if it's something large like that's hard to do. So I'm going to go multi-tiered, just like you're talking about. I'm going to say, as a unit, this offensive line is going to open up holes for the entire running back unit to the tune of at least 1,500 yards for the unit. And I think Zappy's going to close in on 4,000 yards passing. This is going to be a different type of Hilltopper offense that we've seen. You know, nobody on campus, student-wise, hasn't seen anything like this. It's been a long time since the scoreboard's been lit up, since the yards have been piled up in a big, big way. And I think that's hopefully kind of what we're in for this year, more of that. So, you know, this could be the offense that comes out of nowhere in a lot of people's eyes and smacks a lot of people in the face. And of course, the offensive line is going to be the line going to be the unit that has to revolve around. So I like this unit, whoever those 5 guys are, 6, 7, 8 guys are in the quick rotation. I'm sorry, in the short rotation, to keep that going. Keep the big red machine going. That was what I called the defense last year, the year before last, because they were so damn good. So see if we can get a big red machine on the offense going in 2021. Hang with us on the other side of this break. Steve and I are going to be talking about that running back unit for the Hilltoppers. Revamped, not completely, but pretty daggone close. And another unit that, of course, the Toppers have dominated the portal in. Pretty amazing. Stick with us. It's the Moonshine Throwdown podcast.
Jakari Moses on his first play of the game is into the end zone. 19 yards. Apparently Louisiana Tech didn't know he was in there. He did change his number. He was number 22. They changed him to 29.
It's time to talk running backs for these Western Kentucky Hilltoppers, Steve. A little bit of a new look in the room. A couple of guys out, a couple of new guys in, some familiar faces still around. Fair amount of production still here. Phil still ranks this running back unit another disrespectful, tied for 11th with Charlotte. So that's now 2 units on the offensive side of the ball ranked near the bottom of the conference by Phil still. Let's just think that Phil's missed the boat on these last 2 units that we've been talking about. Total number of running backs on the WKU sports roster, 8. Transfer portal, 2 guys out, 2 guys in. Leading rusher from a year ago, Gage Walker, out. Malik Staples also out. 2 guys in. Highly productive guys in, might I add. Jamel Carruthers, aforementioned by you in the previous segment, coming over from Navy, local kid. I always love having those back. And Adam Cofield, a guy I know you're really pumped about, comes over from North Dakota State. Other losses, there are no other losses. It's portal in and portal out from this unit. Before we get into projected starters and talk about who's back and who's on the roster and what do we think about all that kind of stuff, how about this unit now versus a year ago? The look of the room, the feeling, like what do you think you have? Where are you at now versus where you think you were a year ago?
Well, I mean, I said it on Twitter, and when I say it again, I'll stand behind it. I'll stamp and seal and approve it that I think we have the deepest running back group in the league. You know, rank us 11, rank us whatever you want. But when you have Adam Cofield, Jakari Moses, Whittingham, C.J. Jones, and then you add Jamal Carruthers from Navy, former Mr. Kentucky high school football, local kid, just a workhorse that's you can hand the ball off to. There's only one football, but any 3 of those guys, you know, Thunder and Lightning, whatever you want to do, however the offense is flowing, whoever has a hot hand, God, there's so many options back there. And this is one of the groups I'm most excited about. I'm really high on Cofield. What I saw from him at the spring game is how he's built. Just he looks the part of, I would not want to tackle him at all. And then Carruthers, if you've seen him, how he runs for Navy, he is a bruiser back that's hard to take down. We know Jakari Moses is a slasher, can get outside and dart and make a big play. Same with Whittingham and C.J. Jones. You know, you hate to lose guys. You hate when you lose Gage Walker and Malik Staples, guys that have been on the roster. But, you know, some turnover, some change is not always bad. And I think this group is going to really outperform their preseason rankings. I think that is safe to say.
Yeah, I'm with you. It sucks to see some of these guys go, guys that have been on the hill for a couple of years, have tallied yards, have made big plays, have been able to be a part of an offense. But look, the short and sweet of it is this unit last year underperformed in a big way. I mean, just in a big way. You talk about 2 years ago, Gage Walker running up second in the league to Knox out. Believe in rush yard. So some change was inevitable. And I think you're right. It's a definite upgrade from the unit this year versus a year ago. You talk about those projected starters. Redshirt sophomore Jakari Moses. Seems like he's been on the hill like forever, but to just be a redshirt sophomore, back from injury, battled through a lot, and a healthy Jakari Moses is a really, really good player. We've seen him healthy and productive in the past in small samples. Now it looks like he may have the opportunity to be the featured back or one of the main featured backs, depending on how this offense is run. 5'9", 195-pounder, 11 games last year, 60 carries, 319 yards on the year, 5.3 yards per carry. You mentioned Adam Cofield, the grad transfer, 5'11", 215 pounds, 3-time FCS national champion. The dude knows how to win ball games. Okay. You're not a national champion by luck. You're not a 2-time national champion by luck. And you're definitely not a 3-time national champion by luck. 38 games for North Dakota State, 300 carries, 1,542 yards, and 19 touchdowns. Pretty productive back coming out of the FCS ranks. Redshirt sophomore, you mentioned him earlier, Jamel Crothers, comes over from Navy, local kid, former Mr. Kentucky football. Mr. Football in the state of Kentucky, 5'9", 200-pounder, 20 games for Navy in his career, 12 of those starts, 208 carries, another 1,092 yards, and 16 touchdowns on the ground, 5.3 yards per carry over his career at Navy. I mean, it's adding up, Steve. This is a lot of production that just has found its way into the running back room on the hill. Freshman Noah Whittingham, 5'10", 190-pounder, 12 games in 2020. Not a lot of carries, 16 carries, 39 yards. And then redshirt junior CJ Jones is a guy that we saw make some good plays last year in kind of limited action. 5'10", 195 pounds, 6 games in 2020, 21 carries for 144 yards, but 6.9 yards per carry and 2 touchdowns on the ground. Look, those are the main suspects. Those 5 guys are the guys that are going to be fighting and clawing and begging and borrowing and stealing for carries. And depending on how the offense goes, this is a good problem to have. You talked about an air raid offense, but you have the ability right here. If that's not working, you've got the ability to go the old Stanford body blow offense and just wear down defensive linemen with hard runner after hard runner. So these 5 guys, how do you think this is going to shake out? You talked about, some production. You talked about being able to land these guys. I mean, what are you liking about how this unit is shaping up before we've even seen them play together?
I mean, there's a lot of versatility there. I mean, there's a lot of, game situated, game dictated situations. Do you need to bleed the clock? Are you protecting a lead? Do you need to get up and down the field quick? Do you need to line one of those guys up in the slot and possibly get them out in the open and let them make a play? There's just, it's good to have that many bodies. And we haven't even talked about somebody like Daewoo Davis he's a wide receiver, but with this offense that we're bringing in, don't be surprised if he's taking a sweep handoff and going to take that ball in his gut and go. With him, with Jones, Whittington, and even Moses, we just have speed guys. That is a good problem to have. And if you keep up with the WKU football recruiting, they post those every practice, the speed times. We've got some burners on this team. And then you add in Cofield and Jamel Carruthers, who are just bruisers, just guys that keep their legs churning and are going to get their yards and fall forward and make you earn tackling them. The versatility is amazing. No matter who has a hot hand, the game situation, no matter what's going on, I'm going to feel confident about whoever we put behind Zappy or put on the field to make a play in whatever position that is, whether it's out wide, whether it's in a I formation, whatever. this versatility and just the talent that we have access to is just it's not the number 11th ranked unit. I guarantee that.
Yeah, I guarantee you that too. And you mentioned versatility, game situation type stuff. How refreshing does it finally feel to know that you've got more than one guy, that if you're staring down a third and long 4, that it's probably not going to be that big of a problem. There's going to be a high chance that you can get that 4.5, whereas in the past couple of years, it's been like, man, this is going to be, we're going to have to pass for that 4.5, or something's going to have to happen for us to get that 4.5 consistently. Now you've got 3 guys that can get you that 4.5 most of the time. And if the passing game isn't working, if your quarterbacks get dinged up and you're scrambling for a series or two to figure out what's going to happen, and you've got to put the ball and go run heavy for 2 or 3 possessions, you're probably not going to go 3 and out. You might be able to pick up a first down or 2 or 3, or maybe string together a long clock eating drive. I mean, this is the type of stuff that, Topper fans haven't probably thought about and haven't been able to see in a number of years. So, we start talking about this offense in depth. It can really look like whatever they want it to look like on a game-to-game basis. It really can. They might want to run an air raid offense or some form of an air raid offense because that's a sexy offense. It's very exciting. You can put up a lot of points, but if that's not what's going to win you a game on a particular week, that's not what they have to do. They could run 50 or 60 run plays in a game with this much depth and talent and career yardage amassed, and probably also win a game. Still maybe be able to get to that 30-point plateau that you love to talk about. After those 5 guys we talked about, though, there's a trio of freshmen, and we will mention them because they are on the roster, and you never know whose number is going to get called and who's potentially going to capture an opportunity and supplant himself as another weapon. And freshman Javi Bunton, 6 foot, 195 pounder, another local kid. So that makes 2 on the roster. I know Toppers fans, just like Huntington, Marshall fans, they love those local kids. They love to cheer for them. They like keeping them at home, and they want to keep them, like on the hill. Freshman Kai Robichaux, 6 foot, 215 pounder, and freshman Tyshawn Jefferson, a 5'5", 150 pounder. He must be fast as lightning. That's all I know. And tough. You got to be fast as lightning and tough as nails to be 5'5" and 150. Because I'm bigger than that, and I don't want to take hits from dudes like, Tavante Beckett, for example. I don't want to take hits from D'Angelo Malone in practice. You know what I mean? So, of these guys, without getting too biased, Steve, without letting your favoritism come into play, we've been talking about some of these guys for a couple months now. Who are you most excited to see out of this unit in 2021?
Well, if you'd asked me a week ago, I could have answered this question pretty easily. I'm pretty excited about Jakari and what I saw from him at the spring game, and just that bounce in his step and that spring and that speed, that extra gear that he has. But I've also watched Jamal Carruthers when they were winning state championships like hotcakes at Bowling Green High School on the Western football field, because that's where the state championships were played at the time. So, man, what a good problem to have. I think I'm most excited to see Carruthers just because I think he could be that lead workhorse. I think Cofield could turn into like a goal line type, DeAndre Furby type, type back, 3rd and 1, 4th and short, whatever type back, go get that yard. Whereas I think Carruthers could be that every single down back. And I think Moses might just be that home run hitter, that big play, take the top off and get down the field, big gain, big touchdown, whatever it may be. So I know I just named all 3, but I'm gonna land on Carruthers because I think that's a big addition, a lot of experience, a lot of game time, and just that local flavor, that local kid. Got to pull for him. I'm a little biased, but I got to pull for Carruthers. So yeah, I'm happy.
That's not who I thought you were going to say, actually, but you kind of gave it away when you said a week ago. But yeah, how do you not pull for a guy like Carruthers with all the things you just said, winning championships on that field, now going to play on that field for the Tops? going to put the chrome helmet on and have a different feel, but a lot of familiarity there. Like the stands will be fuller because there are, people that will undoubtedly want to come and watch him play. That's huge. And you talk about being a redshirt sophomore. So you've got multiple years left to play. Could be a weapon for years to come. And I love the fact that you bring up names from the past to help relate younger fans to guys that used to do these type jobs. You're talking about DeAndre Furby, and you mentioned Ace Wales before. I mean, these are guys that are helping tying in one offensive era to hopefully what this offensive era is about to be. And, man, if these guys can put up the production numbers and play the roles that those guys played not so long ago, it's going to be fun times in Bowling Green, Kentucky once again. Who's the biggest loss of the two guys that transferred out? Who do you think is the biggest loss off the roster?
It's definitely Gage Walker. I mean, he was that utility knife every down type back, especially when Moses was going through a lot of injuries and just uncertainty. We did shuffle some other guys back there, but Walker the last 2 years has been the guy taking the bulk of carries. So definitely Gage Walker. You hate to lose somebody, but when you got a room that is as full and as deep as it is, and the offense kind of changing, I'm not sure how well he would have fit into a new system and a new set of just design package of plays. So, hate to lose them because, once a topper, always a topper. You're going to cheer for those guys even when they move on.
Yeah.
But I think he'll be tough to replace. You hate to lose a guy with that much game experience.
Yeah, I hate to see him go to. For me, it's the biggest loss as well. Of course, he was leading rusher on the roster last year, so anytime you lose that, it's going to sting a little bit. But boy, have they replaced that void and then some. As a matter of fact, when I came to BG for the game last year on my flight home, Mrs. Walker, Gage's mom, was in the seat right behind me, and he's a Tampa kid, so we chatted, for quite a while on the flight back home. So, I wish him all the best. I hope he finds a spot and can succeed in somewhere he can exploit his talents and, make a name for himself and feel good about the job he's been able to do. I'm sure he feels good about what he was able to do at Western, but you still got games in you. You still got gas in the tank. You still got a desire to play. You need to be able to go somewhere and contribute. So I wish him nothing but the best, but he's definitely the biggest loss. Who's your breakout guy this year? A week ago, did you have a different answer for that too?
Man, well, since I named my MVP already, I'm not going to pick him. I think there's still a lot of unknowns there. And then, Cofield is probably my man crush coming into the season just because at the spring game, this guy, he's just like Adonis in the backfield. He's huge. And then you also got the sexy pick, Jakari Moses, who's just, he's such a fluid, smooth runner, and he's gonna just, a play. I remember at the spring game, a play looked bottled up, lost in the backfield, kept those legs moving, bounced outside, found a hole, crease, and boom, up the sideline for a touchdown. And he also has that kind of feel good factor of he, was a all conference freshman player.
Yeah.
His first year on the Hill. ACL injury, knee injuries, kind of derailed his last couple of years. Coming back, he's healthy. New high up tempo, a lot of yards. Ball's going to be spread and moved around. People getting in open space. I'm going to go with Moses. I think he's going to be very productive just because of the type of player and productivity that he can bring. Somebody like Cofield might have a lot of touchdowns and not a lot of yards. Just get the job done that needs to be done. But I think Moses is going to be an exciting, electrifying, bring the fans off their seats and just really kind of get back to what we remember him as a freshman, just being that exciting, like, wow, who's this guy?
Yeah.
Oh, I remember him. He's still on the roster. He's smooth. So glad to have him healthy. I hope that continues for this season.
Yeah, I love the story, like you said, of Jakari Moses, a freshman, all freshman player, dealt with a couple of injuries, and now a guy like him gets a real benefit from the extra eligibility year because of the coronavirus. And he got himself healthy and he got a year back. So now it's like, yeah, I'm a year older, but I get another opportunity, another season. I'm not limited to now. I just got 1 or 2 left. I've got a couple left or 3 left. So this is a good story. I'm not sure that I don't know if I'm going to call him my breakout player. He's the one that's now the leading rusher on the roster in a topper uniform. So, he's shown that what he can do even after injury. We've seen what he can do. But I like, man, I don't know. This is a tough pick. I don't want to pick, I don't want to pick a guy that's got 1,600 career rushing yards coming out of the FCS. You're not sneaking up on anybody when you're a 3-time national title or national champ. You've talked about Carruthers. He was highly productive in a high school, stud out of Bowling Green. He's not sneaking up on anybody. So I'm going to pick one of these 2 guys that are kind of down the depth chart a little bit. Give me CJ Jones, because I liked what we saw out of him. A play here, a play there, big play capability. He's going to probably end up playing a little bit more of a limited role. Probably going to see more than 21 carries on the season, I would say. But let me see if he can break out to the tune of about 400 yards rushing, 450 yards rushing on the season. To me, that'll perk me up a little bit and go, okay, he's primed for an even bigger year in 2022. So give me CJ Jones as my breakout player. Now, you said you gave away your MVP. Actually, what I asked you about was who you're most excited to see. Now, if that's the same guy, then so be it, but I'm going to ask the question anyway. Who's going to be your MVP at the end of the season? Now, I said this with Trace. It doesn't necessarily mean the guy with the most yardage. It doesn't mean the guy with the most touchdowns. It could be the guy that just makes, clutch play after clutch play when you need it in those situations. So at the end of the day, at the end of the season, when you look back, and you go, wow, such and such had 1,200 yards, but this guy was really the MVP because he kept the chain moving, or he got those late touchdowns when we really needed it. Who's that guy for you? Who's the MVP when it's all said and done?
Well, I'm gonna keep my trend going of relating players to former eras of Hilltopper football, because I think this guy in his previous college life has shown us that strong runner, gains the tough yards, always falls forward, always. When you need yards, he's going to get them. He reminds me of an Antonio Andrews type player who went on and played in the NFL, was highly productive during our Sun Belt years. I think Jamal Carruthers is going to be that runner who just continues to get stronger as the game goes, wears down defenses, and just keeps just pounding you in the face, with just tough runs and those tough yards. And just those game-winning drives, the yards and the points and just everything you have to have. I think Carruthers is that guy. It's going to be hard to keep him off the field with his body of work, his athleticism, and what he's going to bring to this team. Even just joining the team now, going into fall ball. I think Carruthers is that guy. I think he's going to have a big, big impact. And really love to have him back here on the hill. So it's definitely Carruthers for me.
I'm not even going to attempt a counter argument to that because I think that's a great pick. And I like all the reasons you just said. And I'm not trying to put the cart before the horse here, but when you talk about a local kid who was highly decorated coming out of high school, went to play at Navy, was productive at Navy, and then is coming back here with potentially 3 more years of eligibility counting this year. If he's a highly productive back at Western Kentucky and closes out his career, and doesn't go somewhere else and stays here and gets 3 years of 4,000 yards rushing or something like that, you're talking about a guy who will end up, when it's all said and done, being a Bowling Green football legend, high school level, college legend. In that little area, this is what that's primed to happen. So MVP season for the next 3 years, man, you got something special going there. But I like your pick this year. I think he's going to surprise a lot of people because not a lot of people follow Navy football in Conference USA. Let's just be honest. And it's a good pick. So hot take time for the running back unit. What do you got for me now? Because it's a lot to choose from here.
Well, I think we potentially have multiple guys that break the 1,000-yard mark. I just think there's going to be a lot of yards and a lot of points, a lot of production on the field, period, whether it's quarterback, wide receiver, tight end, running back. I think we have the potential of having, if you look back, the Sanford years, we couldn't get a guy to break 1,000 yards or 100 yards in a game. That era has obviously changed. Hilton has made some changes, and definitely we want to be excited and productive on the field. I think 2 guys are going to sniff the 1,000-yard plateau. You've already mentioned, having a 1,500-yard guy. I would love for 1A to have 1,500-plus yards. And I also still think that one of these guys, whoever lead horse is near the top of the conference in total rushing touchdowns. I think, our top running back is going to be yards and touchdowns, one of the best in the conference. So not the 11th in the conference.
Yeah, for the folks that are not going to be listening to our Marshall previews, you're just loyal to Western Kentucky, don't give a flip about the herd. We were talking about running backs, and I kept bringing up the running back from UTSA, Sincere McCormick. He's a great back. You can't take anything away from the guy. He's one of the best in the conference. And if he has a productive year again, or an even better year, he's going to be an all-conference first-team pick. He's already got all the preseason pub, so if he just lives up to the hype, he's going to be in the front running for all those awards at the end of the year, like an offensive MVP or yada, 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 whatever. So, and what I said, sir, was the unit was going to get 1,500 yards. I didn't say one guy, but I like your enthusiasm. But for you to say 2 guys potentially sniffing around 1,000 yards or potentially even eclipsing that 1,000-yard plateau would be pretty amazing. We haven't seen that in, God, I don't know who's done that. Anybody in this conference. I'm sure fans of another team that have done it can tell me immediately who did it, but I don't remember when it's happened. But man, I mean, the hot take is, the coldest hot take of all time. This isn't the 11th ranked unit in the conference. It is right now because Phil says so. That's about the only reason why it is, but it's in reality, it isn't. So, I said I like the offensive line to open up the unit for about 1,500 yards. I could see that easily surpassing 2,000 yards by this unit. It all depends on the flow of the offense on a game in and game out basis. I just don't think, for all they want to say this is an air raid type offense, it doesn't have to be. So you can't go into every one thinking, all right, we're going to pass 50 times, we're going to run 25 times, and that's just going to be the blueprint for this offense. This offense could do potentially anything it wants to on a game in and game out basis, depending on who they're stacked up against. If they're stacked up against a team who's got a really, really good defensive line and a really good stable linebackers, but their secondary is putrid, you could probably count on a little pass heavy type stuff going on, because why wouldn't you pick on the mismatch? And vice versa. If you're lined up against a team who's got a couple of NFL caliber corners and, some linebackers that can move and cover some ground, then you'll probably see a little bit more of a run heavy type offense that week. So it's hard to nail down what it is, but yeah, I'm just going to go ahead and say it. The unit as a whole eclipses the 2,000 yard mark. I like what you're saying about, your RB1, whoever gets the lion's share being at the top of the conference and on touchdowns on the ground. That's a great point, but I'm also going to take that one step further. I think you have a solid all conference, at least second team back, vying for that first team all conference spot against McCormick if he has the year that everybody thinks he's going to have. I think it will come down to those 2 guys, your guy and McCormick, whoever that may be that comes out of the crowd in Western, to fight for that all conference first team spot. Final thoughts time. We got to get out of here. We're just over an hour. What do you got for final thoughts this week? I don't want to set you up or anything, but it's been a while since we've talked about, of course we're going to talk about the running backs and the offensive line here during final thoughts, but it's been a while since we've talked about any other news that's floating around there. And I haven't really seen anything going. I guess the Olympics are kind of taking precedence over everything. Steven sloughed me off last night so he could watch Team USA win a gold medal. So I don't fault him for that. But I I've heard some rumblings, and I don't want to put too much out there, but I've heard some rumblings about some people that have from other conferences that have been in some cities in our conference. So where there's smoke, there's fire. We'll see what that is. But Steve, what do you got for final thoughts this week?
Yeah, I mean, there's obviously a lot of puzzle pieces, chess pieces, whatever you want to call it, pieces moving, big names jumping conferences and making future decisions on where they're going to be going and playing, and TV contracts, and just, there's a lot of money motivation involved in those movements. And I know a lot of people think that, sometimes the Conference USA schools are just sitting on their hands and just waiting to see what they get left with, kind of crumbs.
Not this time, buddy.
Yeah, I say, we've got some pretty sharp ADs. I'm a big Todd Stewart fan. I know he's very proactive in looking forward to the future, and I have zero doubt that he is putting our foot in the door of being in the conversation to elevate our profile wherever and whenever and however that may need to occur. So, yeah, just all this conference realignment, coming back around and kind of being at the forefront of just the news ticker in college football. I think there's definitely down the line here soon, you hear stuff about some other schools in our conference potentially going other places. And that stuff trickles down. It's going to affect all of us sooner or later. So, just kind of keep your ear to the street, hear what you hear, and something's definitely going to happen, good, bad, neutral, whatever you want to call it. It's going to affect us at some point in the future. But getting back to, running backs, offensive line, running backs, one, I was kind of most excited to talk about them. I think there's just too much talent there in the backfield. It's a good problem to have. I think it's going to be a really good, fun group to watch whomever's getting the ball, any play. I think it's going to be exciting. And it kind of ties in with the offensive line guys. They have to be doing their job and be in sync and be a cohesive unit. It's kind of very fitting that we're talking about these two units together, because it's very yin and yang. They have to be working together. The offensive line, they don't get the shine unless those running backs and wide receivers and quarterbacks are putting up a lot of production. You're not seeing those guys getting a lot of accolades or shine for just doing that gritty, hard, dirty, ugly work. But you even talked about it earlier with Mason Brooks, even said in that press conference, he wants to work on finishing blocks more, being that nasty player that you talked about, and not leaving those type of plays on the field, knocking somebody down, putting them down, and making them remember who he is, and think about challenging him in the future. So, love these two groups. Obviously really excited for the season, just a few weeks away now. Yeah, there's just a lot of excitement and a lot of buzz in Bowling Green right now, and we're all ready for UT Martin, coming up real soon.
Well, yeah, go buy a ticket. If you haven't bought your season tickets yet, just go buy the tickets. I mean, golly, they're inexpensive. I mean, relatively inexpensive for the amount of fun you're probably going to have. And let's just face it, what the heck else are you going to want to do on a Saturday night in Bowling Green, Kentucky during football season? You're going to go watch the Toppers blow somebody out for the first time consistently in a long time. Conference realignment is here, and for better or worse, some teams are going to get the shaft. It's just going to happen. Everybody can end up in a better situation. And we saw things floating around out there not too long ago, a week ago-ish, that it was Marshall and Old Dominion were in the news. Conference USA schools trying to stir the pot up here and talk about a potential new conference, Eastern-based conference. And I'm telling you, I'm not hating that idea. I will stand firm in the fact that our tennis teams and track teams and whatever teams you got don't need to be going all the way to El Paso for a midweek competition. Just, it's so far away. And there's plenty of teams in Texas. There's plenty of teams in Louisiana and that can, make that trip. But if you're going to look at teams to build a new conference with or build one around, how much far you don't really have to go. And you're looking at Conference USA, you don't go any farther. It starts at Western Kentucky. Look at conference championships program wide. You don't go any far. They are number one, and they're number one by a large margin. And I think it's well documented that I too am a huge Todd Stewart fan. I think he does a phenomenal job. And I'm still utterly just mind boggled that he stays here year in and year out, and somebody just doesn't like park a Brinks truck outside of his office with a note and a plane ticket. You know, it's amazing to me. So if there is some smoke and fire and conference realignments coming around, we all think it is. We all know it is. When those dominoes start to fall, you better not be playing wait and see. And we know through the news that Marshall's not playing wait and see. We know Old Dominion's not playing wait and see. And we know Western Kentucky, once the ball starts rolling, if they're just seeing what's going on right now, once there's the inkling of momentum going, they're going to be a first mover. They're going to be in on that. Because you talk about Old Dominion, they got the largest athletic budget in the conference. You know, Marshall's just being proactive because they're tired of being, you know, where they are, I think. And this round may be one of the final rounds. And if you don't get into a decent spot this time, you may be stuck in, you know, purgatory for long, long time. And, you know, Western Kentucky's got the most conference championships of anybody program wide. So who are you going to look at? The two teams that are, or the two programs that are making the noise, wanting this to happen. And then you're going to want to bring along the one that has the most championships, the one that's going to raise the profile of your league in multiple sports. Who's got a better basketball resume than Western Kentucky in Conference USA? No one. No one. Historically, no one. Old Dominion has a good one as well, but nobody brings to the table historically what the Tops have brought to the table. Offensive line for the Toppers, I love where they're at this year despite all the losses. I have zero doubt that it's going to come together. I almost said more better. It's going to come together better than it did last year despite the talent that was there, the guys that are no longer going to be lining up one another next to one another. I think the guys that they have now are going to be able to effectively do what Zach Kitley and Tyson Helton want them to do. And as far as the running backs go, it's been a long time, Steve, since they've been this deep. I mean, a long time. They've had good runners. They've had two good runners. And they've had three capable runners. But when's the last time you can legitimately look back and think, man, we've had five guys that can be big contributors? So if we lose a guy to injury, we lose two guys to injury, we still have three more guys that we know can be contributing backs. It's just been I can't remember it happening, you know, in the time that I've been following Western and doing this podcast and trying to build this rivalry. They've never been this deep with this much talent. Yeah, we talked about Furby and Wales, and that was fun. And that was just a left-right punch from hell. They did a lot of damage to a lot of teams for a couple of years. And now you're talking about five guys that can potentially do just as much, if not more damage. So Toppers, buy the tickets, man. Go to the games. Be there. Game one. Show out. Show your love. It's going to be fun. Be in from week one. Don't be in on week 6 when they're like, I want to see if they're 5-1 or 4-2 or, you know, whatever. Be there from game one. They deserve your support. Get out there and support the daggone Tops. Steve, any last parting words before we take it out?
I mean, I'm glad UT Martin hitting the Bears because we know we've struggled with the Bears.
Central Arkansas off the schedule forever, and Maine.
Off the schedule. You know, give me the Hawks, whatever they are, from UT Martin. No, just exciting football is coming back to Bowling Green. You know, tickets better be being sold. The Houchin's going to be full, should be full. Every game, especially that Indiana game. I mean, you can't ask for a better home game with a potential top 10 team.
That's right.
Coming to Western. When we inked that game, they weren't a top 10 team. We were like, hey, we can definitely win that game. Granted, we can still win that game, but it'll be a big win if we do it now. So, buy a ticket, be there. I'll be there. Come see me. Holler at me if you need help getting in. I will help. I will get you in the game if I have to. Come watch the top. Let's go.
You know a guy. Somebody will hook you the hell up. All right. Well, that's it for this week. We'll come back at the end, probably next Friday when I'm off again, and then we'll start banging out these episodes one after another. So until next week, Steve, take us out of here.
Go Tops.
Go Herd. It's the Moonshine Throwdown podcast. We'll see you next week. Later.